angle. We begin today with updates of Nigeria's COVID-19 cases. Currently, there are 13,464 confirmed cases, 4,206 discharged, and 365 deaths. On today's episode, we will be looking at policy responses to sexual violence in Nigeria. Governors of the 36 states of Nigeria will today receive briefing from the Nigeria Governors Spouses Forum, NGSF, on violence against women and children, especially rape. The issue would be discussed because it has become a matter of national emergency as a number of incidences continue to take front burner in the country. The governors would receive memorandum from various groups, including a statement from the NGSF headed by the wife of the NGF chairman and governor of Ekiti State, Erelu Bisi-Fayemi, at the 10th teleconference meeting since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown that resulted therefrom. The Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Pauline Talen, would also interface with the governors on critical gender issues, including rape and sexual violence in the country. We can recall that widespread outrage recently trailed the deaths of girls who were gang raped and murdered by unknown persons in Edo and Oyo states. Last week, 18-year-old Barakat Bello was raped and killed at her parents' home, while Azizat Shomuyiwa, a 29-year-old pregnant woman, was also murdered at a residence in Oyo State. Also, 22-year-old microbiology student of University of Benin, Ms. Vera Uwaila Omozua, had earlier been allegedly gang raped and killed by yet-to-be-identified persons. Just yesterday, we received a report that no fewer than 80 rape cases were recorded in various parts of Anambra State during the COVID-19 lockdown between April and May. We have on the show my colleague, Mr. Otabasekong, who is joining us to engage on the subject. Mr. Otabasekong, it's great to have you with us on the program today. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you, Tayo.
So we've seen rising cases, really, and the fear is that it's not even happening in one state. It has begun to spread in various other cases. Really, don't you think it's time actually to call a national emergency on this issue in the nation?
It is time for a national emergency, Tayo. I mean, if we don't declare national emergency, that means we're not serious as a nation. I mean, like you just said, it's not only Anambra states, in the north, in the south, and down to the west. Yeah. So it has become an issue of national concern, and of course I'm happy that apart from the fact that the president, Muhammadu Buhari, condemned the rape and murder of Uwa Muzua, we're seeing the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs respond to the minister, Senator Pauline Talen. She had a briefing yesterday looking around the challenges of sexual violence. And today she's going to also again engage the governors, to the Nigerian Governors Forum. And particularly impressed with the interventions from the Director General of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, Dame Julie Donley. She, apart from publishing the list of sexual offenders, those who have raped people, which was debated, but is provided in the law, she's also taken a step in engaging the media, and she even said now that if you're supporting rape, it's a justificable case for arrest. She's trying to create that awareness that you cannot go on like this.
It's not something that can go on.
So I really commend her effort and intervention. And I'm also happy that the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs are responding from the federal level. So I'm seeing that awareness, that response, that seriousness.
An
but
urgent
it must be
drive.
a national emergency. It has to be addressed. 80 rape cases in 2 months. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. And it's not something that we must condone. If we keep silent at this time, that means we don't have a soul as a nation.
But so far, how would you access the responses of the federal government on the issue?
Yeah, I feel that with the work that is going on with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, they're beginning to engage all the necessary bodies who can provide the feedback to them to take major steps on how to begin to address this level of sexual violence. And what NAPTIP is doing, like what I said earlier, where they have published the list of sexual offenders, and then they've also engaged the media and issued out a very stern warning that anybody who even justifies rape will be arrested. And they've also said something which is very critical at this time. They said victims should not be silenced.
Yes.
Victims should not be shamed.
Yes.
So the culture of silence can no longer hold in the country. If you've been raped and abused, you have a voice to speak, and nobody should silence you.
Exactly.
And then those who are oppressing, those who are carrying out these acts, should be taking a second thought, because then the tide has changed.
But looking at, like the DG of NAPTEVA said that if anybody really, even anywhere, justifies it, doesn't do the act, but just as good as justifies it, then they should be brought to book as well, or actions or really should be taken. What do you think about that? Because really, I don't think there's any justification for rape. And then her coming up with that that action or that word, of those words, saying that anybody that actually justifies rape anywhere should actually be called to order, called to book. What's your reaction concerning that?
You know, that is a fuel. You see, you have to address the culture. So, for example, like Omar Muzuwa, who was raped and murdered, I mean, there was someone that we saw on Facebook that said it served her rights. She was dating two people, and that's why. So when you make such statements and then you begin to create that kind of perception,
or what the person was wearing, or
people now begin to say, wow, if we can do it and get away with it.
Exactly.
So whatever you say to justify presents a fuel for carrying out that.
That
if you look
action.
at the Middle East nations have had cases of this. I mean, abuse and rapes, and people just water it down and don't take it for human rights
and even reduce the
addressed.
voices of the victims.
Yes. So those people who are fueling this by saying that it serves those people rights,
or they cost it.
They're the actors that fuel this. And so we don't want to be like those claims. We want to be able to bring those people who fuel it and say, yes, it serves them right, to know that you can't be saying such things or create such awareness or wrong culture perception in the society.
All right, thank you for the response. But going further, we've been able to identify that it's not just happening in one state, it's happening in various states across the nation. And it's a good thing that all the states are coming together really to address the issue. What exactly is the role of state governments?
You know, the state governments play a very key role because they're at the subnational level. The federal government plays a central coordinating role. So for state governments, laws, procedures supported by the State House of Assembly must ensure that sexual violence is treated as a very serious offense. So for example, Lagos State did something nice. They posted something very interesting, talking about the fact that rape is a heinous crime and it can't be tolerated. But beyond posting that as a heinous crime, they now have a sexual offenders court where cases like that are treated and treated quickly. Lagos State continues to lead in ensuring that sexual violence is not tolerated. And that's a model other states should follow. States like Ekiti have brought out the name and shame, very, very important aspects. And they also have brought out laws and procedures. In Kaduna State, someone was sentenced to hanging for abusing a 2-year-old girl. And even the governor tweeted and said, yes, this is the right step. So body language of governors, the laws, the procedures, the House of Assemblies must support every act in ensuring that rape action, sexual violence is not tolerated. And so the states play a key role. I'm very happy today that the Nigerian Governors Forum are meeting, chaired by Dr. John Kayode-Fayemi, who is the chairman of the NGF. And they are looking, amongst other issues, at this rising tide of rape and sexual violence. I'm also happy, like you people discussed in your one of the editions of the Women's Series, around the role of the wives of governors. So the Nigerian Governors Powers Forum are going to give them a memorandum, a report, a briefing that should guide them in taking steps and actions. Also from the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. So I'm confident that at the end of this briefing and the forum that they're going to have today, they should be able to come out to say, these are the next steps we take as state governors guiding the states, working with the House of Assembly. So definitely, at the state level, people that carry out the acts of rape and sexual violence will have to take a second thought.
Also looking at now, even it's not only about it being in various states, but it's rising. I mean, we're seeing cases coming up. We've mentioned about how many cases now within the past 2 months. What do you think can be done to actually reduce this rising tide of the cases in the nation?
The first very important step, like the meeting of the governors, is very important. But like Lagos State has done, every state government should create that awareness, putting it out there that sexual violence and rape is a heinous act. Reform the laws, ensure that those that carry out this act face stiffer penalties, whether it's 30 years imprisonment, life imprisonment. Rape and murder, I say, is a different thing than the rape action. Because rape and murder should be taken as a very serious case, because we've seen like 3 or 4 of that cases now happening. And then the rape action. So the laws must be reviewed to ensure that there are stiffer penalties. I'm also happy, Taiwo, to let you know that, of course, we discussed that the National Assembly is also at the forefront of reforming the process. I mean, the Senate President, the House of Reps Speaker, they both have agreed, and that they have to look at the laws and ensure that there are stiffer penalties for rapists. So this is a collaboration with the states and the federal level in terms of laws. The laws must be very stiff. And then the private sector plays a key role, because you know that a lot of people are employed in the private sector. And I must mention out Mr. Tayo Vioso, co-founder of PAGA. There was a message he sent, how he engaged his employees in a town hall meeting to say, look, this company, we don't tolerate sexual harassment or rape or violence. So there's going to be an open approach to reporting such cases. So I expect other companies to follow the footsteps of a business leader like Mr. Tayo Vioso. Every company should come out with procedures whereby there's zero tolerance for sexual harassment. If that happens, there should be channels of reporting, whoever is involved, so that they can face the law. And that's how we can,
yes,
we can begin
I
to
mean,
address
even
the time.
not just the private sector, not just the government, but even bringing it down to our workplaces and how people can relate personally. But let's take it closer home to people of the nation and the citizens. I was on Instagram yesterday, and I saw a post by a lady saying, actually, she saw a young girl of about 2 years with her mom, and then she noticed that she had a red eye. And then she asked that what happened. I think she gave an excuse of maybe she had an accident or something. And the girl's elder brother or sister, it wasn't specified, mentioned that it's a lie, that her mom was lying, that actually her mom beat her because she caught her having sex with a man, a 2-year-old. And when the mother was talking to, why would you do that? I mean, the girl is just 2 years old. She mentioned that she had always been wanting her to go and play with the man, but it was her that went to the man, and the man rapes her. And the question was asked her, so what did you do to the man? She was like, nothing. It was because it was the girl's fault that she kept going to the man. She was always attaching herself to it. And I think it does bring the fact that for younger children, really, rape is not... They don't even know what, I mean, you could attract children with sweets, you could attract them with anything. But I would also like you to just share your views on how the people of the nation and citizens should take up, even personally now, moving beyond what the government should do, moving beyond what the private sector should do, what should individuals as well be doing. I'm happy I saw that, because it was just a passerby that saw the young girl and questioned, and you could hear what the response came up. Even the mother could not say it, really. It was the sibling of the child that had to speak up and say, no, her mother was lying. That just shows the extent. And also, even, let's speak about that first, and then we address women in the rural communities, really, and their mindset concerning this.
I mean, the family is the basic unit in society. So parents have a role to play in giving their children orientation. Daughters, you tell your daughter that you don't get close to people, and report any sign. If they touch you at any of your sensitive organs, also you have to report quickly. So that is the first important step. Training your children, nurturing them to understand that there's a way to relate with people.
Love.
If there's any way you're touched, you have to report quickly. And not, because abuses have occurred at the family stage. I mean, maids, relations, all that are coming and then they abuse you, and sometimes that culture of silence is there. Like you've seen in the cases in Anambra State, most of it at home, abuse. Over 80 cases. So that's very important. And then parents should have zero tolerance for such, whoever is involved, because sometimes when they tell you, okay, this is the person that abused, because it's powerful or well connected, you don't want to take up the case. And also society has a role in terms of the religious organizations, the church, the mosque, must teach about this, they must raise this issue. You know, there must be teachings, there must be open rebuke on these actions, and the teachings must also say that this must not be condoned. Families have a role to play, government and society, because the religious organizations have a very key role here to shape society. A lot of people listen to their pastors and their imams and all that, so they also have to speak on this issue, condemn it, use the scriptures and the various teachings to show why it is a wrong step. And that is how we begin to address that culture. Then coming to the other aspects.
Rural communities addressing, because the truth about this is many are not as enlightened about this, just like the case I just mentioned of the mother actually saying it was the 2-year-old that was to blame for being raped, really. I can't even say she had sex with the man because it was a rape case.
That the mother
would say that really it's just it's enlightenment. And I think there's a role the government has to play also in enlightening the rural communities.
Yes. The rural communities, the enlightenment is very important to the community heads, the village heads, the customary courts, the local courts that sit to legislate or take decisions on such cases. The culture in terms of how they value women is very important, because there are some communities that don't even listen to cases that where women bring up. So that culture has to begin to accept the fact that women are valuable, that if they come up to say they had a case of sexual violence, they should be heard. The same with children. So when those cultures are begin to accept that, that's how you can address those cases. And also in terms of the provisions of the court at that community level. But the community leaders have a role to play. That's why when the governments are doing their awareness, Federal Ministry of Women Affairs are doing their awareness, NAPTIP, they also engage the local government chairman, the councillors, and the traditional heads to tell them that this is a tide that has to be addressed, and they have a role to play in creating the orientation and addressing that very, very terrible tide. It's not something to condone. We must have a zero tolerance. I'm happy with the steps taken by NAPTIP, Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. Governors are responding, and the federal government, and I hope that that will sustain. And Taiwo, these security agencies have a role to play too. The police, the unit responsible for actions like that must be equipped. They must be trained. You know, natural police in Nigeria, they are trained more to secure. They use the guns and all that, but they also need that training in managing cases like this, counseling, going to say, okay, we want to track the people involved in this. Imagine if you have a serial rapist that specializes in raping. You need the intelligence, you need forensics, you need analysis on how to catch such people. So security forces have to be trained and equipped to also tackle this case.
Psychology of it. All right, finally, as we wrap up, do you think women participation in leadership and even in making policies like this will have an impact on this?
It will have an impact, because the woman will look at herself and say, I have value. I mean, when we look at countries like Germany, countries like Norway, countries like Finland, they're led by women and they're doing well in terms of economy. So there was a time when the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, there were these people from Syria that went to Germany. And I think on the New Year's Eve, one of the, I think 4 years ago, 3 years ago, these people just saw beautiful women coming out to the square to celebrate. And some of them were raped. And the German Chancellor had to take it seriously. The people reacted. As a woman, she put herself in that shoe and said, look, I'm leading Europe's largest economy. I can't condone this. So when women are in leadership, like we've seen now, the DG of NAPTIP, see the way she's carrying it out. As a lawyer and as a woman, she's going to give zero tolerance for it. The Minister of Women Affairs taking it up. If we have more of them in governance, looking to a time we can have a governor, maybe 2023, the first female governor elected female governor. Things will change. I mean, the people will know that, yes, you don't take women for granted. Maybe in the future we can have a female president in Nigeria.
Definitely, that will come to pass very soon.
So people will take it seriously.
All right, thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you so much.
It's great having you and shedding light on these issues.
Thank you.
And that'll be all for today's episode of The Human Angle. Remember that this is not just a call for government officials or for the state level, but every individual should have a voice against rape. You could send in your comments and your questions or your views concerning the issue to news@poshareng.com or programs@poshareng.com, and let's share your views concerning it. Visit our website www.poshareng.com to get more updates from our news stories and videos. You can also follow our social media platforms showing on the screen for further updates on our market reports. Till tomorrow, thank you for watching, and please keep staying safe.